Hi, welcome to Mental Health Monday. I'm Heidi Gaiman from ilovemyshepherd.com, and we are talking emotions. We introduced some ideas about the value and purpose of emotions last week. Today, we're going to get into 3 ways in which we kind of deal with emotions. And, sometimes I think we do all these at once. Sometimes they're very distinct, and I hope after today you'll be able to see oh, there that is. Okay, I see what she was talking about. And then we're also going to talk about then leading into next week, we're going to do emotional well-being and what that looks like, getting more to that well portion of our life with our emotions more than maybe our discontent and anxiety and frustration with the emotions themselves. Isn't that funny? We have emotions about our emotions. That's why emotions maybe are So I want to go over these 3 things today, 3 ways we tend to deal with emotions. Number 1, we push them off. So we push them off or we push them aside. Mostly we try to put them somewhere else besides ourselves. This happens, I think, when you're just trying to get rid of usually what's uncomfortable about emotion. Mostly that we can't control them all the time. We have some control, but I think there is that underlying factor that emotions are less controllable than our thoughts, which are kind of also hard to control, and our behaviors as well. And so because emotions are hard and confusing to us, we will tend to push them anywhere else but here, where we have to sit with them and feel them intensely, whatever that looks like for us, especially anxiety, sadness, fear, anger, those emotions that honestly our culture, our society isn't really comfortable with, and we're not sure where to go with them. And so it's really important in all of this, that we let our emotions have their place, that we love them, that we love our emotions, that we're hey, you're part of me, emotions, but we also don't let them lead. And that's the difference that I think it's going to make today. We won't, instead of pushing them somewhere else. So what does that look like when we push them off? We push them to someone else, usually, right? Especially if we're married, we are oh, hey, spouse, why don't you take this emotion for me? Or our friends. And friendship is good. It's a good place, a safe place to kind of put some emotions and share emotions. But when we're constantly putting our stuff onto someone else, that is not fair. We also need to be willing to take from other people and help carry their burdens, their weight, their emotions as well. And also when we become people who aren't pushing our stuff onto someone else, I'm sad, and kind of just barfing that up over people, then we can be friends who carry part of that weight with other people. It's where friendship is more authentic, maybe, instead of just friends who carry my stuff. There's a difference in our definition of friendship, where we have friends who just need to do things that we need for them for, or friends that we share together. It's a big difference. Same thing in marriage, same thing in family relationships, any of that, same thing in our churches. Getting past that, just pushing it onto someone else. Sometimes that looks like words. Sometimes it looks just the energy in our homes and the rooms when we're all angry or anxious or whatever. Or excited all the time. That tends to be my world. That's also not a great place to be. We have to, recognize, be aware of our own emotions. So number 1 is push aside or push off. Number 2 way we deal with emotion is to push them down. And I like to call these ankle weights then. So we are uncomfortable with our emotions. So we just I'm going to shove it. I'm going to stuff it down and ignore it. This is also not helpful, is it? Because guess what? No matter how far we shove them down, we still can't just get rid of them. They're part of us. They're part of who we are. And so by shoving them down, I've only just shoved them further down my person. And it's interesting how it affects your body. It becomes harder to walk. We're tired. It's harder to connect with other people because there's this kind of like shield of our emotional stuff. So pushing them down isn't working for us either. What does that look like? Oftentimes that looks like where we have fears we're not speaking, and so the anxiety gets trapped kind of somewhere. We get headaches, we get muscle aches, some illnesses that are kind of hard to explain, like fibromyalgia or even rheumatoid arthritis. Some of those things have, very real like genetic circumstances involved and stuff. And then sometimes the exacerbation of inflammation, I think, is very real, connected to this pushing down effect we have of our emotions, instead of just like being aware, there you are, feeling a little bit sad. I was a push downer, by the way. I'm a push downer by nature. Like I don't love anxiety. And I don't love feeling sad. I like to be happy and excited, right? And so it's easy for me to just kind of like shove it down. Doesn't go well. Eventually that wells up into, either, the fits of sadness or fits of anger, or it wells up into something, or like I said, it gets kind of trapped in a very real physical way, affecting our immunity and all of that good stuff. Okay, the last one is to recognize our emotions, to notice our emotions. Just notice them. There you are. Sometimes I think just sitting with something for 5 seconds makes all the difference. And it can be a really uncomfortable 5 seconds, right? But just be like, checking in with yourself. How am I feeling right now? And you don't have to judge it. You don't have to like try to change anything about it. Just like, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to a camera, I'm interacting with you all. I feel, pretty content. I actually feel pretty content right now. Sometimes I feel anxious when I'm talking to a camera. If I never checked in on that, do you see how that would be a little bit different though? Like I might be feeling anxious and not aware. And so I'm just talking, and there's all this sitting right here that I'm trying to ignore or do something with, or maybe it comes out in like speaking really fast to you or whatever. But our emotions do affect in really strange ways the way we talk, the way we focus on different things, like when people are speaking to us, the information we're taking in and how willing we are to hear it without like reacting hugely, things like that. So just knowing where we're at emotionally. So the first one was push off, right? Push aside emotions. The second one, push down emotions. And this one is, we're just going to notice them. That way, all of that stuff can kind of move and flow and do what it needs to do in our body without ruling our lives. Remember, we're going to try to love our emotions because they're part of us. We're going to try to love the experience of like being frustrated even that's crazy. I know we'll get to that. Don't worry. That's coming in weeks. How do we get to that place? But because it's an experience of life, it's part of the life God has given us. And especially when we can just notice them and not let them lead, that will help us to have like this full range of emotions that God has given us, but be able to contain them in a way, in like an appropriate space, not just in like one little tiny piece we saved here. And be in a healthy place, be well with our emotions and not pushing them onto other people, being able to converse and have our words come out in a way we want them to instead of just like, or not have that buildup of like hurt, frustration, anger, sadness, and all of that gets really, really uncomfortable and then eventually ends up in like kind of crisis mode. So that's Mental Health Monday for today. 3 ways that we deal with our emotions. Give me all your thoughts. I'd love to hear how it comes out in you, how you deal with yours. We'll, again, looking ahead, we'll deal with mental wellness, emotional wellness, and what that kind of looks like next week. And then some specific emotions, anxiety, warmth and acceptance, fear, different things, and how we each experience them so very differently. So it's good to be with you as always. I'll see you next time.